caucus and business meeting of Narberth Borough Council. Mr. Metrick, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Weisbord.
Here.
Mr. Wainwright.
Here.
Mr. Cilio.
Present.
Ms. Richmond.
Here.
Ms. Fortner.
Here.
Ms. Tevlin Moffett.
Present.
President Mutrick.
Here.
Mayor Grady.
Here.
And John Walco.
Present. All right, Councilor Richmond, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As many of you know, at the previous few meetings, we have tried to schedule a facilitation between council members and the mayor and the borough office to talk about a number of different issues in our working style. And I've taken a few weeks in summer to think about how we've been working together and what we can do to make it better. In January, council members chose to elect me as their president, and I approached this with a fairly laissez-faire style. Each committee member looking out for their own committee, running interference, offering support where needed. I have to say that I don't think that that style has worked effectively in the past few months, and I take responsibility for that. What's to be done about it is to change gears, try something new. What I've seen over the past few months is council members injecting tasks into others' agendas, everything on the table being the top priority, a little bit of paralysis in the office about what to address, and working relationships suffering greatly. I think all of us have felt that this volunteer position is maybe a little less pleasant than it has been in times past. When we tried to schedule the facilitation, which has not happened, it has not happened because many of the members who maybe, I'll be blunt, are those most often injecting those tasks or coming up with new ideas before completing old ones. Those are the ones who were unable to schedule the time when others were available, unable to make the schedule work so that we could all be in a room at the same time and discuss our process. So, in changing gears, I'd like to announce a change for council members, and that is that, to begin with, the borough solicitor. I would like to be informed if you're going to have contact with the borough solicitor. Partially that is to control billing, to make sure that we don't have duplicative work, that things are not excessive, but also so that if you are working with Mr. Walco, that I am aware of what you are working on. You are, of course, allowed to have a conversation with him without including me in every detail, but I need to be emailed and told that you are going to be having a conversation with him. All requests to the office need to be thought about. If it's a request that involves analysis, it involves legwork, before that request is going to be moved forward in the office, it needs to go through me. If you want to say, how many street signs are there between Windsor Avenue and Sabine Avenue on North Wynwood? And that's something that someone's going to have to go out there and spend an hour getting the answer to? That's going to go through me, and don't be surprised when I say no. Because we need to prioritize borough-wide what we are working on to build the foundation for the future. Committee chairs, I have let you handle your agendas to a good extent on your own. That is going to change. I'm going to be checking in with you every 2 weeks to see how those agendas are moving forward and to help you prioritize those. And I will be considering the workload of other committees in doing so, and the workload of the office, and the time of year, and what projects are at hand. So that something that may be your top priority may not have available resources for you to move forward as your top priority. Because we need to consider that we need to finish tasks rather than just adding tasks to the list. We need to get our ship in order. I think there's tremendous positive work happening in every committee. Code to remove inconsistencies that have cropped up over the years, to bring the language of that code into the modern age. Through economic development, our downtown is undergoing a transition. We see that a number of our key anchor stores are beginning to change in ownership. Through public works, we have a lot of paving, we have coordination with the various utility companies, and we have a lot of projects. We're moving forward with our swale over here in the park, and also building and zoning has a lot of work ahead of it. In looking at the form-based zoning code which was passed, I know there's a big list that's going through planning commission right now about potential modifications and changes. All of these things are laying a foundation, but we are losing sight in the day-to-day of the to-dos and what has cropped up and something that's happening on an intersection somewhere. We're losing sight that we need to move forward with this strategic plan so that we can have the foundation in place that we can then act on those operational items. Otherwise, we have neither a foundation nor the ability to act. I would also like to point out that the borough is not Sean Metric, any more than the borough is me, or the borough is our mayor, Tom Grady. The borough is an organization of probably more than 50 people who are involved in various boards and commissions in all different aspects. And for an organization of that size to be effective, it needs to communicate with itself. One area where we have fallen very short is in communicating between boards and communicating from committees up into council. The planning commission takes, I would say, solid minutes of its activities. Borough council takes solid minutes of activities. But when a commission or another board meets, maybe they don't take minutes at all. And so then the only way to know what's happening is to attend that meeting. And in another time, some of us here at this table may have done that. But that is not an effective way to manage our time or work together. We can't expect that Sean Metric is going to attend every night meeting and be in the office 40 hours a week, plus all the additional follow-up and everything else we need to do, and attend every borough event. It's not realistic. And so what we need to do is take that effort to make those minutes and submit them to the office for every board, every commission, every committee, and for us as a council as a whole. So that if someone needs to check, they can go on the website and they can read it. It's all public information, it always has been. But it isn't available to any of us if no one writes it down. I am hearing from the community, as well as from council members, a frustration with Borough Council and with the office that the response times to questions and inquiries are not where they need to be. And I am directing the office that calls and emails need to be acknowledged within 48 business hours. That is 48 hours of the business day. You call on a Monday, you're going to get a call back on Wednesday. No later than that. Even if that call is, I don't have any information to give you, I am unable to prepare those documents. Please file a request for information through the Sunshine Law. Whatever it is, it's not going to be a black hole. And I've discussed this with Mr. Metric, and he supports that. The only way we can make that happen is if we prioritize and we put the brakes on some of the projects that kind of appear mid-month between meetings, that steer the office in a different direction and make them unable to do those things. In that regard, I hope that the community will see these efforts as a positive step forward. And if they are seeing positive results, I would love to hear that we're doing a good job. And if you're not hearing those results from us or from the office, I would like to hear that also, so that we can continue to take corrective action and make this a community where government is responsive to the citizens. Some people may say that I don't have the authority to restrict control of the office and what it does, and Mr. Walco and what it does, to just through the borough president. I was elected to serve at the pleasure of council. And if council feels that I am taking the council in the wrong direction, or the borough in the wrong direction, with trying to have a stronger hand in our organization and our management, then I encourage you to let me know. And I would never take it as a personal insult if you chose someone else to lead this council. I serve at your pleasure. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, do you have a report?
Thank you, Council. Residents of the borough, school has come back. It's a busy time, and we see a lot more car activity, a lot more people driving faster. We just ask you to slow down. But also, since our police can't be at every location, in every corner, if you find a car that's going through a stop sign, or if you see a car that's not paying attention to a school bus, give me the license plate. We'll send a nice little note out to the person who's driving, let them know that someone's noticed what they're doing. I'd also like to get a statement from you as well. Just tell me what happened. If it becomes that egregious, the act itself, we may actually do a sworn statement and prosecute on that. But our police can't be everywhere, but we also want the community to be involved with our policing. So I'd ask the residents of our borough to be involved and take the license plate down. The easiest part is snap a picture. The picture itself is not admissible in the evidence, but at least helps us recall the license plate number. And we'll get a little note from me telling you, hey, you've been seen going through a stop sign or speeding or going somewhere in the borough. And we'll track them down as well. The other item I have is I have a town hall coming up this Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We're going to talk about a lot of different ideas from the borough. I hope everyone can join us for that town hall. The last item, and I'll direct back to council. We've had some great success with the parklet in town. I thank council for giving me the opportunity to place the parklet for a 5-day period. I don't request council to consider my request to extend that time period to September 30th before the Oktoberfest begins. The public request council for the authority to extend that time period up until September 30th. Council wants to acknowledge that and give that authority to them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now we have a recognition of an installation of a beautiful new mural at the Narberth train station. Would you like to come up? Show of hands, who has seen this beautiful mural? I think it's fantastic. And it took, do you have an idea of how many hours you logged putting it in?
I have over 100 right now. Yes.
100 hours. That's, I believe it. That's good. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I guess we can do it over here. All the cameras are over here, and I can see how comfortable you're feeling in front of me. If you just want to take a moment, let everybody know your name, where you live, and why you did this.
Okay. I'm Bridget McKee. I'm from Wynwood, and I did this for my Girl Scout Gold Award. It's the highest award a Girl Scout can achieve in her scouting career. For volunteering her services for the betterment of public facilities. We recognize the restoration and replacement of public art located at the Narberth train station pedestrian underpass. The planning, hard work, coordination, and initiative required to complete the task and maintain a high degree of professionalism benefits present and future residents and visitors to the borough. I'm going to let Tom finish.
Where'd you end up? Elected members of the Borough Council and Mayor, thank you for your efforts and dedication to seeing this project through to its conclusion. Be it resolved that Narberth Borough Council on this day, September 19, 2016, recognizes Ms. Bridget McKee for her services to the Borough of Narberth. Thank you. My reading glasses.
Sure. I should have prepped you for that, I'm sorry. Committee reports. Finance and Administration. Councilor Cilio.
Can you hear me okay?
We're going to go a little louder, but yes.
Finance and Administration had 2 meetings in our last council meeting. We had our regularly scheduled committee meeting for a half an hour earlier this evening, and I'll get to that in a moment. For that, on the Wednesday the 7th, we had a special public information session, reviewing the financial context of the borough as a lead-in to our 2017 budgeting process. And we had a sort of review and discussion of revenue, expenses, fund balances, debt, and our pension and other retirement obligations from 2007 to present, with a little background and context to the numbers as we go into the budget season, as well as the listing of the various potential capital spending items that we may encounter over the next 1 to 3 years, things that are already identified and somewhere in the project priority stack. So we've had a good discussion on the 7th. We came away from that with several significant questions to follow up with both our auditor and our actuary, particularly around pensions and other post-retirement liabilities, to really try to dig in and understand those better and understand the time frame over which those actuarial liabilities might in reality need to be addressed. And we're having follow-up meetings on that going forward. Mr. Metric expects to meet with our audit firm tomorrow, and we'll have further follow-up questions for the actuary that we hope to address before we get too deep into this year's budget cycle. So I think that was a good and productive discussion. Earlier in the meeting, we had a regularly scheduled meeting and briefly discussed the budget process, which is ongoing. And at the point of taking input from departments and outside groups, including the fire department, to fill in the last line items for a preliminary budget, which I believe is still on schedule for review in October, and will be iterated on to the fall in advance of December, hopefully final approval, a little earlier in the month of December this year. We also reviewed with Mr. Metric some of the other projects that the office has going on. And I don't want to steal his thunder in case he's got that as part of his manager's review, but there's been good progress to date on website public communication infrastructure, IT infrastructure for the borough office and building at 100 Conway, as well as we did have a discussion on the status of implementation of C6, both the part that the public sees, but also the behind-the-scenes workflow management infrastructure. Our next Finance and Administration Committee meeting is scheduled again for the evening of our next regularly scheduled council meeting an hour prior.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions for finance, Bob?
Two brief comments. As of the October meeting, we should have a budget to present. Is there going to be a budget to present to council? Preliminary budget?
There will be a budget to present to council in October.
Just want to make sure that's a good step that we have it earlier than we've had in years past. That's terrific. The second thing on economic development, on finances, during our meeting, there came a personnel question that we want to go to executive session after the meeting.
Okay. I'll make sure I put it
One
on
more
there.
point, I'm sorry. Charlie, we forgot to mention boards and commissions.
Oh, you're right. You have the list?
Well, I have a list.
Yeah.
There are several boards and commissions that their appointments expire at the end of this year, and if Mr. Metric has the same list as I do, there are about 8 or 9 positions that are either a reappointment or for new folks to come on and take those positions. I think we are looking, and Mr. Metric will let me know when we will accept those letters of interest and post those boards and commissions, and we'll take it from there. Then there's interviews, then we'll go on from there. Thank you.
I did want to add one other thing that I overlooked in my previous comments, but they connect directly with administration. You'll notice if you call the borough office now, the phone tree has changed. You have an automated attendant, whereas before the phone just rang and somebody answered. Part of the design is to help you route calls, just like the new website, which is soon. will allow you to find your information quickly, but by routing calls, developing competencies and empowering our staff to feel free that they can all interact with the public within their domains, rather than a need, say, for one person alone to get the answers and be responding. So that would apply to Leslie Marshall, who is our treasurer and also our administrator. That would apply to Mr. West, who not only handles our technology implementations, but also the permitting process, which is a source of a lot of incoming calls. And that will also apply to our highway foreman, Mr. Dixon, who can answer a lot of questions about the conditions of the street. He's driving around all day. He sees everything that happens in the borough. So expect that that tree will continue to develop in a way that will save everybody time. But it's going to be a change of gears from how things used to be, quite honestly, for 30 years prior, where you spoke directly with the borough manager. You pick up the phone, you speak directly with the borough manager. That is not realistic, and I don't think there's any other borough that you could call in a 100-mile radius where that would be the case. So we're going to change over time. That should free up some more of Mr. Metrick's time to help us with the strategy and the foundations and pillars that we're discussing. Anything else, Charlie?
No, that captured it well, thank you.
Moving on, Public Works, Councilor Whitbread.
Public Works did not hold a meeting, so to give Mr. Metrick more time to do all the tasks that we have in our midst. A couple quick notes, and then we'll get to the broader things. The Shade Tree Commission, I spoke with one of the members, and they'll be coming back to the committee as well as the borough office, with elements that they'd like to put into next year's budget to help them do their work. But they did put a request for shade trees to be planted in people's yards, backyards, primarily in the area that is in the borough's right of way. And they have 20 more requests than trees already. So they will be doing this in the fall and then again in the spring. So that's a real positive to see people taken to that and want to plant trees, which is also an important thing. I do not have an update on the bridge art, though. Mr. Grassi is working on that still. Fortunately, we're not in a short time frame on that. What's going to be coming up for council this evening is important for the community, as we put an RFQ out for our trash services, or waste services, I guess is the polite way to say that. We're going to be giving a menu of 3 choices to those that choose to bid, as far as when the collection times are and what they are collecting. So currently we have waste pickup every Friday, and every other, the second and fourth Tuesday is recycling, as everybody knows, and then on Monday we have the newspaper. There's a lot of inefficiencies there on the surface. It's actually efficient, we'll see within the bids, but ideally, well, the choices will be as far as cost, and then for council to decide. And so if there's any community input over the next month or two, please get back to us. To remain the same as we are, to go to a once-a-week trash, once-a-week recycling, and put the same day for the newspaper recycling. Or what was the third option on top of that? Or is basically twice a week?
Status quo, twice a week with one paper.
Once a week and the once a week and twice a week options also option the single stream recycling, or where the customer separates paper from co-mingled. So you really have 3 options, but there's 2 sub-options to them, so there's really you're going to get 5 numbers from this bid to evaluate.
Once it goes out to the public, it should be today or tomorrow. After we approve the RFQ, we'll put it up on the website too. So that's it. That's one of those things that are part of our everyday life. Not exciting, but those things that we on council live for.
Can we just clarify commingled?
Sure.
Does commingled mean I could put my cans out in a cardboard box, and the box and the cans would all go away? Is that what that means? Single stream commingled?
It's a little bit like calling a flower a daisy and not using the Latin word. Commingled means a lot of things to different people. What we're really talking about is 2 ways to have your recycling collected. Either the customer sorts paper and everything else, or the customer doesn't sort that, throws it all in one bin.
But you're asking if
So
we
if
use
we
the
get
cardboard as a
some-
container.
Yeah, if we get the option of cardboard, paper, and cans
Everything
and bottles together,
You can
everyone
use it
could
all.
just put their plastic in their in a cardboard box and
Yes.
it would all go away.
Theoretically.
All recycling has to be placed in an approved container to be picked up by the hauler. That's one of the conditions of the contract. So if it can fit in a yellow can, sure.
You could also approve cardboard boxes.
If
Okay.
the hauler approves that.
I just want trying to understand single stream, because that's
Yeah.
misunderstood on.
I think it is going to depend on the bidder, where they are taking the waste, how it's going to be contracted to them. Each facility has its own technology of what it can. and can't do.
The next thing, is there anything else on trash?
I think we should address it.
What?
Bring it up now.
Yeah.
As of 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock this afternoon, I was informed by a gentleman who still don't know his name, that Suburban Waste Services was bought out by a company. Your trash and recycling and leaves will still continue to be picked up in accordance with the contract. This new company called B&L Disposal Services from Wallingford, Pennsylvania, acquired all the assets and contracts for Suburban Waste Services, which is why, if you notice the truck going around town today, it had the logo scraped off the side of the truck. So it's still the same employees, same routes, same service, new owner, and we are going to deal with this hiccup going forward. But this contract, regardless of who owns it, expires at the end of this year, and we'll be looking for a provider, and B&L will be invited to bid on it.
Correct. Just wanted everyone to know before they notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out if the owner is still running that portion or if he's leaving.
Yes, we do not know.
Find out. The next big thing is the parking plan that we approved last month. Mr. Metrick has been working out the fine details with Nelson Nygaard, and I was hoping to see where we are scheduling to get the initial meeting conversations started with it.
Yeah, it sounded like members of council who saw the email I sent around last week were in favor or silent upon the contract execution with Nelson Nygaard. We got some of the additional services put into the contract, and we got those additional services at a discount from what was quoted earlier. So right now, the total price tag is just north of $75,000, including the additional bike facilities work that was discussed. And they just need a notice to proceed, which I'm ready to do tomorrow, and we'll schedule an internal meeting with the consultant, and there will be a public, the first public meeting to go over the parking study will likely be scheduled in October. And there will be 3 public meetings throughout the development of the parking plan that'll be spaced out with some analysis and additional information. So we'll get the consultant team in here 3 times on this project.
Anything else?
The last thing is, in our meeting last month, I gave council a heads up that we were looking, so I was looking, and the mayor was looking at what we're gonna be hearing from Ms. Anderson a little bit later under economic development, and really look forward to that. See how council can work together to hopefully make something that's very positive come forward.
Great. Any questions for Councilor Wainwright? Public Works, no? Building and Zoning, Councilor Weisbord.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. The Building and Zoning Committee met on Wednesday, August 24th. There's a variety of things that are moving forward in the background. Montgomery County Planning Commission is working on the borough's draft of a comprehensive plan that will be introduced in early 2017 as a draft and reviewed by the Planning Commission and Council. Currently, the Solicitor's Office is working on several ordinance revisions to Chapter 124, our zoning code, and that the Planning Commission will be visiting later this year. The Borough Solicitor's Office is also working on a revision of Chapter 50, Chapter 67 to clean up language and kind of bring it up to date. As well as, most importantly, the SALO, which is the subdivision subdivision and land development ordinance, which is the rules by which a property owner can combine properties or divide properties. Going forward, the committee will be providing the Planning Commission with a list of issues that came out of the discussions late last year, in April of last year, around the passage of Chapter 124 of the zoning ordinance. And they will be looking again, as a group, the Planning Commission, at issues like closed porches, height limitations, and some of the other metrics within the zoning ordinance that have been questioned. That group themselves will decide if they want to address any of those or not, and then make that recommendation back to council. So we'll await their opinions on those items, as well as their review of the ordinance revisions that are going on currently through the solicitor's office. A bit of sort of new old business. Through one of our residents, Ann Ting, who's here tonight, we were introduced to the director of the Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission, and he's in charge of our kind of district, Mr. Council President, our best historic architectural practices. The Commonwealth has money in their budget to provide services to boroughs like ours, looking at best practices for protecting our historic buildings. There are some members of the Planning Commission who are interested in working with them, and we could ask as a council to have Mr. Kirghese come from the Historic Museum Commission and give us a short presentation in October to see if it's something the council and the community want to pursue, which would be a process that would be cost neutral to us. It would require some volunteer commitment, Planning Commission members' time, and some involvement of council. So I just want to make that public, present it to you. So, I mean, because I know that you're concerned about, what we're prioritizing and what's kind of piling up here. I just want to discuss briefly, is that something that would be okay to have him come on the 17th and
I do think
make
that
presentation?
a presentation, maybe 15 or 20 minutes in length, to get us up to speed on what it entails and what kind of workload we would be taking on to move forward would be very helpful, so that we can understand how it fits into our priority list.
So the committee will set that up with Mr. Kirghese, and he's already said that the 17th is available to him. And then there's a leftover item from our discussion last month and previous months about a moratorium on tear downs. This is an issue that many members of the public kind of brought to our attention last spring and last winter when developers were in town scraping away old houses and building new ones. Our solicitor at that time looked at the question of whether or not it was possible to create a temporary moratorium on tear down. In conversations with Mr. Kirghese at the Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission, he suggested kind of that it might be possible to create a moratorium that was tied to the study that we're doing of policy that would move us towards some policy around the protection of these buildings. Apparently nothing like that's ever been done in Pennsylvania. So if we had the guts or the stomach to fight that fight through the court system in Pennsylvania, it's something that would be available to us if we wanted to take it on. I'm not. I'm just saying. In Lower Marion Township, there are sort of different classifications of old buildings that have been created by their Historic Architectural Review Board. And so they have certain kind of guidelines or they have rules around waiting periods and investigation brackets for certain buildings. That's something, we don't have categories really of buildings except for maybe these institutional properties like churches. Again, if we had the wherewithal as a community to fight that kind of, to defend that kind of ordinance, that kind of statute through the court system, it's available to us to create. But again, we would have to be willing to try something that's untried. So I just wanted to put that out to council. I know that's something that members of the community have been interested in us, asked us to look at, and there's some ideas, some thoughts. Yeah.
Perhaps we could get, because we're talking about the potential of litigation, maybe we get Mr. Walco in executive session later to give us some of his thoughts directly to council, what the risks and rewards possible are. Something like this.
Sure, I think we have all kinds of outside experts that may advise us of certain things and their legality, but ultimately our solicitor is our answer on legal issues, so we can discuss that during our executive session. Thank you.
So nothing more from building and zoning. Thank you. Oh, our next meeting will be October 24th at 8:30 in the morning.
Are there any questions for building and zoning? No?
Oh, so the list, we have not given a list over to the planning commission yet?
No.
So, and do you have a target date to do that, or we just?
In the coming month, sure.
Okay, I thought we were trying to use September, that's fine, thank you.
Well, it is still September, before the end of September.
Before the end of
Okay,
September.
that's good.
There we go.
Great.
Now we're back, lecture. Economic Development, Councilor Richmond.
So we met prior to 7 o'clock prior to this meeting, and we talked a little bit about what the Economic Development Committee does and how it supports the business association. We're waiting to hear back from Ed about the cost of producing the map that was talked about in the past. And also the downtown, how to manage, brand, promote the downtown and the business district. And also we have, which one I mentioned? We joined a couple of the regional business associations that we were not members of before in order to promote some of our events. Let's see what else. And we talked about doing a survey with the business association to get the input of the downtown businesses and others on what it is that they think they'd like to see Borough Council do for them. And now we have the presentation from Sally Anderson on, I'm sorry.
And Ryan, I have a question.
Yes.
I already posed this subject with regard to this council, the opinion that the parkway can stay until September 30th.
I was going to make that motion during old business.
Okay.
All right, we'll get to that then.
So Sally Anderson had a presentation regarding the development of an L-shaped portion of the old gas station property, also the fitness station. Now it's a fitness station. The owner of the property reached out and said that he was interested in doing something with that for public use and enjoyment. So I think we have power.
Ms. Anderson, will you address a little bit about your background and
I will.
how you came to this? Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sally Anderson. I've lived in Narberth for 20 years. I've raised my kids here, and for probably 19 and a half years I've been talking about that one particular spot in Narberth because it's such a hub, and we've had that conversation. But because I find it such an ideal spot to do something. And we had Richards too, and now we have the fitness station, and I think we can do more with it. And the idea that Kenny, who took over the fitness station, is willing to allow the borough to use it to our advantage, I think we should take advantage of it. My background is, for the last 16 years, I've been in horticulture, landscape design, build. I've I've done a lot, you can look me, I have an online resume, you can look up if that's something you're interested in doing, but this is something I've been doing for a long time, and I'm very interested in urban planning, but I spend my time doing design build for a very long time. So it's exciting to me, the idea of being able to do something in our own community. I do have a presentation, which is great. I had it on, of course, going from PC or from Mac to PC is a little bit challenging, so my bells and whistles might not be there, but all the content is there.
Do you plug the video cable in?
I believe it is.
Yes. I don't think so. It's an old VGA.
There you go.
I haven't seen much. Wiggle that little guy in there and another 30 seconds. Maybe we're bright enough. We'll see if we can keep the lights on. Sally.
It's on the screen, so it's not mine. This is you.
There you go. Thanks.
Wait, that's not me. So wait, that's the.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure.
Master.
That is the desktop, but I have something up that's still.
Oh,
I mean, so
what's
you
it
can
gonna
see.
do?
the-
Anybody?
Yeah, that's my family portrait.
Yeah, I tried that.
All right, so I'm working from a PDF, so it's not, Can we turn out one light without turning out all of them?
Yeah, we can turn this. Tom's got it.
Perfect. All right, so my thought is that I would love to do something that brings people into our town square-like area, more so than it already does. I mean, we have a fantastic community. I'd like to add some vigor to it. And in the process, what a pocket park is a small urban, or a small green space that's usually put in a highly dense populated area. And as you can see, they have 4 key qualities: very accessible, engaging, comfortable, sociable. What I'm noticing is that when you go into Narberth, it's great. We have everything that you could possibly imagine, except for the fact that when you go down there, you don't necessarily want to stay down there unless you're sitting at one of the bars. You don't see people going down there just to say like, hey, let's go into town to sit and hang out. And what I would like is something that brings people in, not just Narberth people, but potentially will bring in additional people, which will also add to our businesses. Right here, this is just the base plan, which just means this is what's existing. So this is the space that we're talking about. Kenny has already said that he would give, originally, I was thinking, because he had mentioned that this was possible, so I was originally thinking it was just along Haverford Avenue, but he said, no. I want this to be a place, he even used the word, I want this to be a hub. I want this to be a place where the community comes, where if the mayor's going to give a speech, you can give it on the corner, where, So he gave us the opportunity to do this L shape, which I find to be a great opportunity to do something along these lines, which is, what I want is to green up the space. One is it's hot, it's miserable down there. You can see as he has it, there's one tiny umbrella, and if he's out there, he's huddled under it. Otherwise, you don't want to be in that space. It's also private, no one's using that space to its full capacity. So what I want to do is green it up. I want to make it so you can access it in a bunch of different areas. This would be what I would consider your main access, but as you can see, you can come in this way, you'd weave around, you can come in this way, but it has a way to maneuver through with different functionings. So you have a bunch of sitting areas, well, I'll get to the seating areas in a second, but how we can draw people into this is by making it engaging. So here, hanging chairs, we sit there, people want to sit, they want to hang out. You have, I put these tree stumps there, which is what these blue dots are. And the idea is that you're engaging not just like people, but children. At nighttime, what are these? That's actually just glow-in-the-dark paint. You put it down there, it's like something that people can sit on, use as seating, or kids can like clamber on. Because one of the things as a mom that I always notice is, or that I care about, is you're walking around with your kids, you need something for your kids to do. I mean, you want to be able to talk to your friend or what have you. Your kids need to have something to do in this area to draw them to it, so you can sit down and relax, and your kids will have something to do. And along those lines, this very small little toddler play area would satisfy that to a degree. And I'm talking about very small. It's not meant to be a playground in this area. It's just meant to be multifunctioning. So you have a small, we're just talking about like toddlers. So when, mom is sitting there and dad has to get up and deal with the kids because they're sitting there talking to their friends, this is where they can go and play in for just something to do. They can hop on here. Another engaging thing is you want to do things that will keep you there. So here's this table that I was talking about. You put things on there that people can play, whether it's Jenga or painted tables. You have this particular area where it's greened out. What I wanted to do was so this will be completely greened out. Here's a tree. This little pathway goes through. It's engaging to kids. It's a way for them to to run through the garden. It's not just something you look at, it's something you're engaging in. And along with that is, I just put these down here to show that the paving that goes down here can have illuminated pavers, which will draw a kid in. It's very cool. You're walking through because you see on the ground there's different colors, so kids are going to maneuver through. Something fun to do while you're there. Ping pong table over here. Fits. You can sit there, you can have fun, your friends can hang out. Once we go down, I mentioned right up here, there's a pallet wall. That's what this looks like. These are just sort of ways to show you exactly what it can look like. This is what I'm talking about. One, as you can see, it defines a space. I love the idea of being able to make a vertical garden where green is hanging down, which you can see in this top area right here. It blocks the alley, because I know people don't like it. Right here is that it's 6 feet long, there's a tiny little 4-foot wall, it's not pretty to look at, so I would love to, the idea is to define a space. People don't want to be in a space unless it's defined as someplace they want to be, and I think this would make it so, I feel like it would set apart an area where you want to sit down, you want to hang out. The seating area through the whole thing. Here's some examples. So my thought is that you have different things that are not only permanent, but can also be removed. You have small round tables that people can sit at any given time. In here, I really love the idea of having not just a bench, but a planter. Those plantings are horrible, but something like dynamic in there. But you also have a bar rail right there. Well, a standing rail, as any case may be. So this entire area is functioning for everything. You can have a cup of coffee from the cheese company and stand right there. But if it's a pop-up space where we want to have an event, it just means that the space is spilling out into the sidewalk, and it just engages people, and there's more space to use. You have a long table. What you tend to not want to do in these type of spaces is have too many things that are movable and cluttered. So you want to have something where multiple people can sit down. It's one thing, it's less cluttered, and larger parties can sit down and be in there. The other seating possibility is also here and here, where I'm thinking a seat wall can be in. It, again, defines the space. It also makes it another place for people to sit down and relax, and it just defines this area where you're just able to sit down at any given moment. You can see that we can go, generally, these numbers are generalized. At any given time, as it is, you can fit probably 25 to 30 people in there just during the day. Anyone who wants to sit down there and have lunch. We can have events in there, and it could very easily support 55 to 60 people sitting in here.
Would that include the sidewalk space too? Or just
No, actually it doesn't. Because that was interesting, because I was thinking about that, and I decided that I just wanted to focus on what was what in defined space was, because I thought if you were using the sidewalk space, all of a sudden it gets murky. So it's added if you add the sidewalk space. This area right here, I want it to be a raised planter with built-in benches, again, so things can't be scattered around or moved, and this again is a drink wall, and here's an example of a type of sitting bench where you can have a planter up against the wall. That's just for, you know, visual ideas. This is another alternate, as I pointed out here. There's multiple ways to do this. I like a very clean, streamlined. It is a smaller space. There's a lot of space to accomplish a lot of things in there, but we can use something that's narrow, like this one, or there's other ways where you can do it. And you've seen these all over the place. They're fun, but you know, it's whatever people decide. I've done a decent amount of design work on this, but there is some to be determined based on what people want, options that people want to suggest. Lighting, always very important. So here are the areas. So up in here, I wanted to do hanging the market lights. So they would go around this area. There would be two sconces up on the pallet wall to light it up and make it comfortable to be over there. One of the cool aspects that I'm thinking of is I would really love to have these archways that draw people underneath. It's just dynamic, it's fun, people are interested in it, and that's where you can see. I would like the corner to act as the official entrance, even though there's many ways so you can enter through that. This particular pathway would be great to walk through. You're walking underneath these lights, it draws you through. The same thing goes for going over here. You walk along underneath here and you can come to this different area. These are, again, talking about the lights that we can pop into the pathway. I want to plant some shade trees, these 4, where we could put some uplights just to draw it in and give it an interesting look. It's hot. It's going to take a little while for trees to grow in. I'd love to add, what I think would be a great idea is some shade sails, as I was talking about. You can have them multiple colors, they're different shapes, they're different sizes, you can put them at different angles, and they're fun, they're interesting, they're geometric, they're just engaging to look at, and will draw people just based on color and interest. And you can see, and this was just I put this down just to give people an idea, but there's multiple ways to do it. The shades, or the sails, are all different shape sizes, what have you. This particular one, I was noticing might be kind of cool to put right in this area, and you could walk through. This height obviously is variable. It's just a suggestion. You can have them to the point where they can be completely, you can have them so the rain doesn't go through, or they're slightly porous. But even the porous ones are only 10% porous. But I don't even think if it's pouring rain out, people are going to want to go out. So I'm thinking it would be totally fine to do the porous sails, and it's still a shading sun. If it's drizzling, it's still protecting people. You can sit in there, you can play, you can do what have you. Also, I was looking in as far as we get wind, we get what have you. You can see these particular sails, they go up to 85-mile-an-hour winds. If we are getting more than that, I'm thinking it's a hurricane and we do need to bring them down. But that's, not that common. The hardscaping. You can see up here where I'm talking about, this is the area. So I like these 2 different kinds of hardscapes, and the part that I like the best about it is that it's permeable. We're talking about trying to aid with the stormwater issues that we have. Right now, it's just concrete. It's just running, and stormwater is just running by. I would like to use these permeable, and this mirrors a brick-like situation, which also is in many different areas in Narberth. I mean, the design itself is supposed to mirror aspects of Narberth. We have lots of brick. We have we have these, what we call it, bed edgings all along Narberth as it is. So it's really supposed to tie into what we already have. This is also permeable, but I'd like to do, whenever you put something down that breaks up your frame of vision, it makes you slow down, it makes you look around, it makes you sort of pay attention. So it makes sense to sort of break it up. So people stop and they're just not booking, they're just realizing like, oh, there's, you know, something to take a look at. And I think it would be a very special thing to be able to have this like a tunnel to basically be able to walk through underneath the lights and a different sort of paving, and you can go through the, you know, the path. As you can see, there's different examples, you know, controlling stormwater, using sustainable material. Here's just an example to show you how it's beneficial to use the stormwater. You can see the actual material itself is permeable. It's not just that it's dry laid. So I see, as far as the second thing that's listed there, the minimize heat island effect, if there's any, that area right now has major heat island effect with nothing but just concrete and just reflecting the sun with no shade, what have you. You know, and all these other, oops. And it's also worthwhile to note that these kind of pavers last longer than other ones. They reduce the water use for landscaping, for maintenance, things like that. These are just garden elements. I would love, we have one of these, I'm sure people know, it's the railroad tie that they bend that generally has been in, I think they mostly use it just for firehouses, and they use it as bells. We have one on here, right down there. I would love to be able to, maybe we can steal the one that's on this building, but we can get one and put it on there and tie it in, make it through. I mean, it's about making the garden dynamic, interesting things, use of native plants, put some garden structures in there. If we wanted to do something like, you know, something like this, we could with lights, and all of a sudden you're walking through a vegetative tunnel. I think it's important to promote walking and bike riding, but I don't want to just put down a normal, like your typical bike rack, which is, you know, I think we should do something interesting. It could, you know, helps define the space. I think design is really important when it comes to, we're talking about our downtown area. We want something that's well designed rather than just something that works. Funding options. I know these are it's expensive, and as Aaron was talking about, there's a list of things that are already on the to-do list for town. There's a lot of them. I don't think that means we should not keep adding to the list, because we have to keep looking forward. And I think there's also additional ways to fund rather than just by taxpayer money. There's a bazillion grants out there that people don't take advantage of, and it's, you know, community building, revitalization, greening. I have a call into someone from the DCNR, whatever it is, our local person, because they give out money, even if it's just a match. In-kind materials, money from local businesses. I mean, there's so many ways we can make this happen by using our local people. That would not be a major fund. I mean, I can imagine how many tree people would be interested. Maybe the Shade Tree Commission would be interested in donating the 4 trees that I'm talking about. Maybe we can get the, you know, I remember Gigi was talking about another project, getting the, you know, the scouts to come and do the planting. I mean, there's a lot of ways that we can make things happen that wouldn't tax us, like, in all of them, physically and monetarily. I don't see why the local businesses wouldn't want to contribute. We're talking about bringing people in to use their businesses. And, you know, it's a pop-up opportunity where we can have events there. It's just going to draw people in. It's going to bring people to their businesses. Corporate sponsorship, it's always sort of a dirty word a little bit. I mean, no one wants to have like a big PNC sign up there, but I think it is worth looking into. I think we have organizations and corporate sponsorships available to us where it wouldn't be offensive. But, so that's my thought. I bring this up just because I love Narberth. I care about urban development. I care about what happens to our community, and I think that we're missing an opportunity by not utilizing this space when Kenny's going to give us the opportunity. And I know that the circle in the train center, or the train circle, is what people are talking about, and it would be very easy to take the designs from this area and transfer them over into the train circle and make it a cohesive space. So, but that's generally what's, so if you have questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them, but that's generally where I'm going with this.
At this point, I think all of us have a lot of questions.
By all means.
And I wanted to give economic development an opportunity to bring you in, Sally, so that we had a nice forum here, because I think this is something that has been developing for a couple of months now, but a little bit off the radar. And I wanted to have you come on a public forum. This is where the project is. At this point, I would like to take this project and send it back to the Economic Development Committee, where it can be discussed in committee. And I would encourage all of us, council members and the public, if you have questions, concerns, issues, to funnel those through Councilor Richmond, whose email address is on the website, phone number I believe is on the website. And we can kind of develop that plan in committee, and then hopefully within a few months' time, come back here with a more cohesive plan and maybe an idea of how we can accomplish it. Does that make sense to everybody?
Well, I have a question actually regarding why economic development is creating a policy or a plan that actually belongs in Copy Committee. So my concern is that it's in the wrong committee, and that the meetings that have been taking place with Mr. Corll and others were not in the public eye, not in this room. Mr. Corll has not come before council with any sort of idea or plan. But the conversations that have been had by council members, or in fact the mayor, have indeed not been before the public. And I have a deep concern about the quality of those meetings and the promises, and in fact, actually engaging Sally to give this presentation, which might lead, I don't know what the conversations were, and to make a promise of any sort without bringing a presentation of the information before council. You're better than this. I know you to be an honest person. You're better than this.
I would like to say that.
This is getting to be a very upsetting concern, because first of all, Sally, how much were you paid to do this so far?
Zero. It's not a
Thank
question
you.
of what she was paid.
So-
Where did the conversations take place?
Conversations started with the mayor, other people, what could happen in this space. We talked about this as a council 2 years ago when we looked to purchase this property, and then the council backed off on doing that. When we looked at that, the council at the time said, this is an opportunity for the community. This is an opportunity for a space for our businesses, for everybody to get involved in. Something to be a nice statement for the downtown as opposed to a blank gas station frontage. So when you start insinuating that it's more
Not
than just a
insinuating anything.
conversation.
I want the question answered.
What is the question?
Where were the meetings held? Where
We
were
don't
these
need-
conversations with Mr. Corll? This woman has come before us and
Sally
said
is-
that
so I
Mr.
talked to
Corll has
Mr.
had a
Corll.
conversation about
Wait,
it.
what?
All right,
I
guys.
didn't say I had a conversation with them.
That they did.
Okay.
I've talked to Mr. Crowe.
What
Would
we
you be
have-
interested?
Councilor
Is that
Redgrave.
it?
What we have here is a presentation of an idea. There is no official action before council. Council has made no promises, and the only body authorized to make any decisions on behalf of the borough is the council in a vote. And so I will indicate if anybody feels like this process has gone off the rails or the promises have been made, unless there is a public vote in this room, no promises can be made to anybody. No individual council member has that authority.
That's what I wanted
The
you to
mayor
say.
does not have that authority. Mr. Metz does not have that authority. And so where this is an idea, and thank you, Sally, for putting it together. It's a very interesting idea. And it's gonna go to economic development because this is not a space that belongs to the borough at this point in time. This is an idea that may not even involve the borough in its final state. It may be a private group of people that come together to make something like this happen, and the borough bears no responsibility other than permitting. I don't know, but that's what economic development is for, is bridging that public partnership with the private sector, and that's where it's gonna go for right now. And we'll see how it develops, and maybe if it is moved closer to implementation to be the borough's responsibility, that could change. I could see Public Works having some involvement, I could see Property Committee having some involvement, but at this point, I don't think there's any way to know.
I would just like to clarify, there's been, as in relation to me, there's been no promises made, there's no nothing. This is me as a person who's lived here forever raising my kids, as a person who does this for a living, as someone who's been talking about this space for literally 20 years. I've had conversations with Bob, for this long. So it just struck as an opportunity, and then it just went from there. So it was not anything backdoor conversation, what have you. It was, I think this would be great. I'm a member of this society, or this community, and I would love to see it happen, because I think it's a wasted space right now, and I think Kenny's willing to engage in it, and why not take advantage? We have water, we have electricity, we have the ability, why not?
I
So,
would just like to shed a little light.
go ahead.
Yeah.
You know what, I'm gonna give each council member
Yeah. Oh,
a
okay.
chance just to say something, so Bob, now it's your turn.
No, I just want to shed a little light because I'm aware that the public is sort of hearing this discussion and hearing Gigi's concern, and maybe somebody's wondering, well, what's going on here? And I have to say that, like, as somebody who actually had conversations with Sally about this before I even lived in Narberth, like when she lived in Hamden, was renting a house on Hamden Avenue next door to the auto body shop, I once went to visit her, and she said, oh, there's this really cool gas station downtown. I said, yeah, I know about that. She's like, oh, it'd be a great place to have movies and do things. And so, like, Sally's very authentic in her interest in this space, and in her interest in urban planning. It goes way back before Mason was born. And I remember those conversations fondly. But I do, just to join Ms. Moffett, it is puzzling to me also as council member sitting here that this presentation occurs under the, and I enjoyed the presentation, by the way. But it is also puzzling to me as a council member that this presentation, that I saw it on the agenda under economic development, because I'm on the economic development committee, and I was like, well, wow, how did that get on there? We've never discussed this in economic development before, and so I didn't know how this became a presentation of the economic development committee. I've never heard this discussed among council members. Is it a policy of this council to allow, and I think this would be wonderful, to allow residents of all stripes and to come and make presentations and proposals, because I know there's people who would like to make proposals about the Station Circle area, who have ideas for, really excellent ideas for how to adaptively reuse Station Circle. And that would be a cool conversation. You probably have ideas. So that would be a cool conversation to have too. And so, it's kind of like, I love the energy of creative conversation. And I know that there's a kind of decorum, there's a sort of an order around the way council does business, and I don't know, that's where I see there's kind of like it's hard to kind of understand what's going on right now.
I hear exactly what you're saying, and I know that this project has had some life for a long period of time. It seems that it's starting to become visualized, and a property owner that's interested, and this tonight is the opportunity to kind of place it into the framework of how we do business. And so now it is something that is on the Economic Development Committee's agenda. You will see it discussed at the Economic Development Committee. Concerns should go, and then we'll see if it comes up to council for some kind of action, whatever that might be.
Well, can we then make an open invitation to all members of the community who have terrific design ideas, like about Station Circle, about Sabine Avenue Park, about
I would encourage
Montgomery Avenue, because I think it's great food for thought as a community to have these kinds of presentations. I mean, maybe it's 10 minutes of every council meeting if we're going to do that. But I do just, this is mysterious.
Well, I encourage anyone who is passionate about something in this community, and I'm looking at other people in the room who are passionate and made things happen, even though they don't serve on council or in an official capacity, to find someone, whether it's myself, if you'd like to come to me as president, or you could talk to the office and see maybe one council member might be the right connection for that interest. And when we see something develop, we find a way to inject it into the community structure so that we can make it actionable, and that's the purpose of tonight. I don't know that everybody who comes with an idea is going to get a presentation. That is something that's going to be at my discretion, and in this case, here we are. Councilor Fortner.
Okay, Sally, I love this idea, and I'm looking at it going, wow, I love something like this to happen, and all kinds of things keep running through my head though, and that's why I think it's great that this needs to go back to committee and work its way through there, and some of them are really boring. What are the legal aspects of this? I really don't know what it means to say, what would this be? I mean, this is not our space, but if we did this with borough funds, that's a lot of investment in there. And I'm already, as a property chair, looking at property that the borough already owns and doesn't maintain well. We've got a lot of money and a lot of things that we need to spend down the road on fixing things. So I'm looking at that and going, okay, how does that fit into that picture? And again, if it is something that the borough has some responsibility for, there's maintenance of that. ongoing forever, once you put that in. We don't, right now, have a really good handle on everything that needs to be maintained. So we need to think through all of those things before we say, yeah, we're gonna go down this path. So I think there's a lot of work still to do on it. The design part's the easy part. When
It's
I look
very
at
much the easy part.
It's like, this is the easy part.
It's not totally easy, but.
Well, but in comparison to this is the easy part. And
Yeah.
so I'm looking at this thing, this is great, but I don't see this happening, in anything less than a year, given what we have to figure out. And then if we're fundraising, that's part.
So with that said, I'm gonna let Tom make some comments just to
No,
be fair.
if it stays-
And then I'm gonna close this.
If it stays in council, because Aaron also opened the door, it could be a private venture
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
And
Then we're not involved
your
at all.
issues, but it's something we can evaluate in economic development.
Exactly.
Thank you. Is there anything else for economic development?
I want to thank Sally, and I also want to recognize Kenny Coral for offering this as an option to the town, and I'm, considering it, I'm very impressed that, there's an opportunity.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Got it. Property committee.
Okay. We met on September 7th. We received, we finalized the facility use policy and regulations that cover, right now, this building, and will be eventually covering more. We're ready to present that to council tonight for adoption. Do we want to discuss that now or discuss it later?
Let's discuss it when it's on the table.
Okay, cool. We also got, we received some reports from the borough manager on various things, but I saw, Sean, in your manager's report that you're gonna hit on almost all of them, but the one I don't believe you had in there was to celebrate the fact that the heating and air conditioning is fixed in this building. I know. We don't have those air conditioner window units anymore. It's wonderful, so thank you. The property committee also met with the recreation board on September 12th. This was kind of a get acquainted meeting because the property committee had not met with the recreation board in at least a year, maybe longer. The recreation board hadn't met on their own in at least a year. So this was kind of a, let's just get acquainted, and the property committee was making a request to the recreation board that they begin meeting regularly, that they, so that they're in a position to serve as an advisory capacity to the property committee and council for short and long-term planning on the use of our parks and playgrounds and that kind of thing. So they're working on setting their first official meeting date, and so at some point that'll be publicized and they'll be meeting, and at their first meeting they'll be electing a chair because they don't have a chair, they haven't had one for a while. So that's all being underway. The property committee is going to then start to work on just some kind of background kind of things to help them as they start to come together and think about what they might be talking about, meeting about. So we're working on that. So we're really excited about that because we'd like to have their input. We want to know how people who use the park all the time, what they think about it, and what they'd like to have done. And then our next meeting is October 5th.
Can I add something?
You may.
I'd just like to add an acknowledgement of Barbara, who brought together the rec board with the property committee, and an extraordinarily well-run meeting that you did, and I think engaged rec board in a whole new possible way of supporting the borough and advising the council. So really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a question. So the rec board, you're giving them, I think you said, the guidance to look at a 10 or 20-year plan for what?
We just said short and long-term planning.
Short and
We're
long-term.
just, we're not trying to put parameters around them. We want them to really think about what's possible.
And we've never, I haven't looked at the members of the rec board as far as their professional backgrounds that they have. Do we have anybody on there that's got a skill set that's done this type of thing before?
No, and that's something that we're gonna talk about on the property committee. The rec board has 6 members right now. They can have up to 9. Maybe we need to add some people, I don't know. We told the rec board that the current members that we can add people if they'd like, so we'd like to hear what they think about that. We also told them what we're going to look into is possibility of getting some assistance for them from the county, but right now the county's pretty busy with the comprehensive plan, so we'll need to look into that to see if there's someone who, you know, is there room in our contract with the county to have, or do we have to wait till the comprehensive plan's done? We don't know that yet, but they need to get meetings scheduled. You know, they've just never had them scheduled, so we need to get that process started. It took about a month to get our meeting scheduled, so you know it's going to take a while for them to get. I think by the time they're ready to really do some work, we'll have some of those answers.
No, I think it's an important aspect of the park, as we talk about. I remember when Mr. Metrick interviewed with the council, and one of the presentation parts, he showed some ideas on the park. And, it was pretty neat. So it'd be good to see, you know, us get some professional guidance involved sooner than later.
And I'd like the recreation board to tell us, you know, here's what we need too. But I'd like everything about that too. You know, and we can do it as long as we feel we've got money in the budget to do those things. Let's see where we are.
Thank you. Councilor Cilio?
I was just going to remark that, you know, they're focused on a short-term, what's called tactical maintenance and other near-term improvements needs to Parks and Rec, and that includes the facilities at Narberth Park, but it also includes facilities at Avon Avenue Park and playground. And the rec board, I think, is going to be a good nexus for these kind of discussions because they already work hand in hand with a lot of the parks users, including the Narberth Athletic Association. And there are going to be projects where, you know, certain parts of the community are going to have a very strong working interest in it. I know there's an active community organization already out there thinking about the improvements to the Avon Avenue playground. And this planning process, there's a tactical element and then there's a longer term element that we tackle next year. It's going to try to address all those parks and all potential uses for them. Some of which could be, you know, public-private or, you know, nonprofit, partially funded in nature. So I'd say if there are folks out there who are working on things or have big ideas around either the park and facility at Narberth Park or at State Line, you know, it's going to take a little while for this to form and for the rec board to get rolling with it. But I think there will be a group and a rec board chair in the near future that those ideas could be, you know, thrown into the mix with.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for property?
No.
Moving on, public safety, Councilor Tebel.
Public safety met on September 7th at 6 p.m. A number of topics. We did get an email from Civil Service Commission, and they hope to have a letter in front of council with a list of potential candidates, officer candidates, and they're hoping for the October 5th meeting deadline. There's always a question of background checks, and those are done by an outside service and can't be rushed. We're not in control of those, so if all the information gets back in time, we hope to have that list on October 5th. The other item that we discussed in length was the Chapter 67, as Mr. Weisbord presented earlier, is the Narberth Fire Prevention Code. We started out just having that review because there was some conflict between Chapter 11, which is the formation of the firehouse, and 67, which defines some of the actions between council and firehouse and has some definitions of fire inspector, chief, those kinds of things. And we were looking to just change a little bit of information, and Mr. Walco brought to our attention that Chapter 67 was not in line with the documents that Mr. Weisbord presented earlier. So that would be the SALDO, the UCC, and our new form-based code. So we had a discussion at the meeting and asked Mr. Metrick to go ahead and tell John's office to go ahead and form the alignment that needed to be done in 67, along with all of the documents.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's one other thing. We had a question from the public about a notification system, and then an email was sent to Mayor Grady. A resident wanted to understand why there was no notification of crimes or issues going on in the borough from the police department. Sean recommended that there is, or just put it out there, really didn't recommend, that there's something at the county level called Ready Notify. And you, it takes a little minute to register for Ready Notify, and then you have to uncheck all the communities you don't want to follow. So you have to go through all of Montgomery County to get to Narberth and Lower Merion, so you have to uncheck everything. So it's a little wonky, but it is out there. You can get notifications of what's going on in that system. It is free. You just sign up for it, but you have to take some time and really go through it, unless Tom has any information on another
I can see
system.
flags on my house. No, we're gonna look at it.
That's it. No, yeah, that's
Thank
fine.
you.
Thank you.
Ad hoc succession, Councilor.
There's nothing.
I am considering closing ad hoc succession as a committee in the time being. It's been a couple of months since we've met.
Sure.
I think you're okay with that?
Yeah, we are doing most of these things for finance at this
I
point,
think,
so.
yeah, with the administration side of finance, it seems to.
Yeah.
Okay, so, goodbye ad hoc succession planning. You did good for the borough. Got us a manager, and assistant manager. And a solicitor. And you know what?
I'm going to do so much work.
And you know what, I'm gonna actually, Council Rick Wright, as chair of ad hoc succession, I thanked him before when we made a number of these hires, but I will thank him now as we're closing this committee at this time. He really took on the heavy lifting in a serious way, in a tremendous amount of personal hours that were dedicated to making it a very professional and fair process and finding, top-notch talent from all over the country for the borough. Some of the interview candidates were willing to relocate from significant distances, so we considered a lot. So thank you. Thank you very much. Ad hoc Montgomery Avenue, a new ad hoc committee, new this year.
Yes.
Anything to report?
Yeah, we're looking to schedule a meeting in October, and the first meeting is a breakfast meeting with the businesses along that corridor.
Okay.
I should just point out, this is for people that haven't been to a lot of our meetings tonight, this is a combined grouping with Lower Merion Township, which is really nice to be able to work together with our neighboring township in a positive, friendly way to try to build something out of what is there on Montgomery Avenue. How can we make it better, both economic and for residents to access? So it's good. It's early, but it's a good relationship start.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Councilor Richmond? Okay, let's move on to public comment.